themselves because they think they can't get the services to clients that are needed. We are a little bigger community than Larry talked about. Storm Lake is a little over 10,000. We're a population in our county of about 20,000. And instead of having 15 languages, we have over 30 recognized languages and dialects from some of our groups that have moved into the area in the last 20 years. So there's quite a steep learning curve for some of those people to get up to proficiency in English, both speaking and the computer literacy of these kiosks has just been a real mountain to climb for a lot of those folks. So the Employers Council has been trying to fill some of those gaps. The priority service has been talked about a little bit. I think that's one of the reasons that some of the funding should give us the right to go to 3-4 is we're going to have some funding come along with that so that the people in the COGS can have the necessary staffing to be able to serve these people. A lot of our folks move back and forth between Spencer and Storm Lake. We have two other communities that are on the northern fringe of Buena Vista County that are less than 20 miles from Spencer. So it's a natural shopping and newspaper pattern that they do a lot of things in Spencer. It's just a natural for these folks to look for services there while they're in the community. We just thought that there were a number of good reasons to think about doing this. The fact that we've historically, Buena Vista and Clay County have worked together on a number of other groups, and the top is part of one of the groups we work on. It's just been a natural fit for many years on a number of different entities that have worked together. So we just thought it was a natural fit.
I believe I might be able to add just a little bit to the priority of service. This is Leslie Schmalzried, and I serve as the regional representative for the Region 3-4 board and have now for the last 3 years. The priority of service for me is when we consider our department, we have integrated service delivery centers in both Fort Dodge and Spencer now. So in that respect, there is no priority of service. People walk in from everywhere and are served. What it comes down to, however, is with the Workforce Investment Act dollars, the WIA, those funds actually go to the respective regional workforce investment boards to manage. And that's where those regional lines come from, is Region 5 currently has the oversight for Buena Vista County and those dollars within their purview for staffing and for the variety of services that are authorized under the Workforce Investment Act. The Workforce Investment Act in Region 3-4, that RWIB is also charged with serving folks that come in to their regional office and are glad to do that, but there aren't the dollars allocated for residents of Buena Vista County for their region. Right. So for WIA, exactly. So what they will do is they will partner, but from my experience, typically the dollars don't usually follow. It's simply an agreement between those two boards and the staff that this individual has come and is a resident of Buena Vista County and is interested in training and employment services available, and that's where that priority of service language might come into play.
And to further muddy the water, the other piece of priority of service is under federal law. Veterans get priority of service for all federally funded employment and training programs. So if you hear, when I think of priority of service, I'm thinking about veterans who, whenever there's a situation where there's a waiting list, whether it's for a class or training program, if a person is a veteran, they go to the head of the line. And so that can also impact that as well. But I think part of the issue here is the money is allocated to the respective boards, and those boards are tasked with the management of those funds. And there's people, if people are going back and forth, you kind of like to think that the in-migration, out-migration will balance out. But I think one of the concerns that has been expressed to me is how that money would be reallocated if there was a realignment of the counties. And I do want to recognize that Lee Bean is here from Region 3-4 as well, and I would like to hear his input as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Senator.
Just a couple of comments. I want to thank Larry for his comments about some of the issues there, but I want to correct one thing. It wasn't the legislature that shut down satellite offices. In fact, we put language in the appropriation bill that stated specifically that they would stay open. It was the governor and the director that evidently decided that that wasn't going to be the case. We felt that, in fact, we even took them to court over how that was handled. I just want to say a couple things, and then I do have a question. I think this clearly points out some of the problems that does occur when you limit access to Iowans who need services around the state. I'm not aware of, and I'd be surprised and be more than happy to listen to any of the regions and the COGs that provide services to people who need transportation directly or individually so they can drive to these facilities to get help at the one-stops. Because in my region, they don't provide services. They got bus service, normal bus service, but that's around my community. It doesn't drive across the county to deliver people to the one-stops who might be even living in another county. It's clear that the comments that were made by Mr. Ahrens about the lack of skill set in the kiosks continue to put a barrier there to individuals who need services, and they really do need to travel to another place. But that's really kind of around a different issue. Getting back to the need to realign, it's always been the case since I've been involved in workforce development that they have served people wherever they showed up. I mean, that's just always been it. And the money has never really followed that. It's kind of balanced out where if you have one region, somebody goes into another region, you pick up somebody in your region. There's always been a balance there. But we also, at that time, had a large satellite system that people didn't have to travel and get involved. So by closing down the satellite system, we really have created another problem, and I think this board ought to take a look at the map. I mean, it's pretty easy to see that there are plenty of other counties. For example, in Jackson County, Dubuque is just a little ways away. Why aren't we hearing from Region 9 to say that the people in Jackson County need to be realigned with Region 1? And I think if we take this action, they'll probably be hearing from those other counties. You've got other counties across the state, some that just stick out. Montgomery County and 14 versus 13. How far are you going to drive there? The Marshalltown area. You can look in almost every region and find people that are on the other side of the line that need to move, into another county. So maybe the board, instead of looking at this as just a specific individual problem, maybe we ought to start looking at how we allocate our money and who's being served where. And I don't know if that's a problem with the federal regulations or not. Another question I have, and I'd ask of the director, and maybe somebody can respond to this. I do know that we are grandfathered in with our regions. And when we changed and recreated the Carroll region from Region 11, we lost our grandfathering clause, which then changed the size of the boards. Does this change, even though it's not as major as what we saw when we realigned and created the Carroll area, recreated it, because these borders really followed community college boundaries. Does that cause us to lose our grandfathering clause in the Region 3 and 4 and 5 to change the board size, just by moving to one county, even though you still have your regions, but would that change it in any way?
No, because the regions themselves stay the same.
Okay. No, they wouldn't be the same.
Well, except, the regions, we're not combining regions.
Okay, or you're not splitting them up.
separating.
Okay, so you still have the same number of regions.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's important consideration, but it's still something to consider about, and I don't know the answer to this. Is it possible for us in Ohio Workforce Development to change how we allocate really some of it based on services provided versus just direct, and that'd be a big problem, but if you know where people are, maybe there's a way of having, I know that we had additional performance funds that were out there for districts who outperformed. They had incentive dollars that you can move into a county. Maybe that's how we resolve some of these spending issues, is allow people to have performance dollars, incentive dollars. If they're picking up so many in a different region, that they have, maybe the money ought to go where it's really needed. So just some thoughts. I don't know if that's something possible, but I think that if we make this action, and I'm not opposed to doing it, I really see that the people in Buena Vista have a legitimate concern, and that you do look at travel areas, and that's one of the things that we really looked at when we first created the regions, and Steve Oval was on that. We looked at travel patterns and basically how labor sheds are. It's more not necessarily where actual boundaries are, but it's where people live and work and travel. And this system that we have here doesn't necessarily fulfill that now. And so there's a lot of concerns to be addressed besides just this specific issue.
Senator, if I could answer just one of your comments. We used to have those incentive funds, and in the last round of appropriations, the 15% allocation that we were using has now been changed to 5%. We're hoping that in the reauthorization that we will change that again. We actually were in DC about 2 or 3 weeks ago with each of the offices, asking them to give the opportunity of those incentive funds to come back. And you know, the story is different almost every day with the federal funding. Right now, I could tell you that our representatives and senators would say that half of some folks are in the camp of trying to get it up to 10% from the 5% it's at now. Since it was lowered to 5%, most of the states that I'm aware of are all asking to get the 15% restored so that you can address these kinds of situations within. Every state has geographies that are challenging like this. But currently we don't have that incentive money that we can use for that purpose from the federal funding process anymore. And I doubt that in the near term we will see a reauthorization of WIA come out that talks specifically about that. We're just getting currently some extensions on federal funds and not necessarily any more flexibility to be able to do that. But we are very involved in input with both of our senators and our legislators, saying that we really need to have that flexibility to address it.
Unfortunately, how the money is allocated is federal formula.
Yeah.
We would really, really like to have flexibility with that, but we just don't.
Governor's Association has been working on
Yes,
this one
they have.
to see if they can't get the flex funds back.
Yes,
into the,
NVA has a position paper out,
Yes.
consistently asking for input.
Piecemeal this thing.
Can you hold up? I would like to hear from Mr. Dean, also from University.
I am from Emmitsburg. I've been the chairman of the Area 3-4 area for, as I recall, by 1985. I've been a member of that. I've been a member of that board since about '85, and as I recall, I've been chairman, with the exception of 1 year, since 1990. A little background here. Most of you remember that Area 3 and 4 were separate. in truth, to begin with, they were together, and then they separated, and then they came back together. And I've been involved with all of that as we've gone along. So the thing that I'm sure here is that the Board of Supervisors of Beebe County have done a great deal of analysis and given a great deal of consideration. And if you deal with local politics, you know that if you do things in a hurry, you get flack in a hurry. So that's one of the things that's involved. And I'm sure they've given a great deal of consideration to the many points of view in the discussion. If BV were to be included in 3-4, there would be an increased opportunity for the region's council of governments and the region's economic workforce development. And these things are 3 and 4 are participating in those efforts in Beebe County now. So we get involved with that kind of thing. As a chairman, I can assure you that if BB becomes a part of Area 2-3, that they would be welcome and be a participant. Having gone through the changes in 3-4, we find that we do work pretty well together. And one thing we do, I understand that in other areas it's different, but that the boards of supervisor people that are representatives of the board and our RWIP board meet at the same time. And if there's a need for 2 votes, we get 2 votes. It's not always the RWIP that can say, and that makes for good communication as we work with that kind of thing. I'm open to questions. I have not been a part of any of the discussions or anything that BV County has done within their borders as far as that's concerned. Yes, sir.
Well, I don't necessarily have a question, except I thought the most revealing thing for me was the labor shed analysis that came from Fort Dodge, Webster County. If you look at the TV and that they're really out on the fringe of that, which is an indicator to me that the natural flow of services, and I thought the county supervisor from BD was very articulate in describing that natural flow of services and transportation and things to Spencer, which would seem to me to be a better delivery model for the clients, since they're already naturally going there for their services and so on. That seems to make a lot of sense to me.
There is a very strong, as I look at it, development where what they call the corridor of opportunity it goes from Spirit Lake, Estherville, through Spencer and to Storm Lake. And that is a very strong group that probably has an effect on that kind of thing.
And the second thing I noticed is these lines made sense when the person put them on the paper, but there is a natural flow of relationship that if we had other counties approach us with this issue, we ought to be open to consider that, because so if Jackson County really feels more akin to Jack, I'd certainly be open to that same rationale. There's nothing magic about this line. It made sense, and you had to have lines on the paper, but these kind of discussions should occur as you want to continue to improve service delivery.
Those alignments were done according to the community college.
Right.
And
but there are things that go past that in terms of natural, years ago, a natural flow of traffic and that kind of thing. So I'm sure would be, as a board member, be open to further requests if that's what surfaces because of this decision.
BV College, for example, has outreach programs in Fort Dodge Emmitsburg, Spencer, and I think Sheldon, but I'm not sure on that. So, I mean,
I guess
it goes both ways.
the final thing I'd say is I haven't heard anything that's going to be such an adverse effect on Region 5 that by shifting this county could impact them significant adversity, so.
Question I had, what kind of money exchange are we talking about? Do we have any idea if it's our, is it our with federal money that would move with 2, 3, 4?
Yes.
Does anyone have any idea of what?
Michaela, in our shop has done some preliminary figures, and it looks like between 10 and 20,000.
Oh, so minimal.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
I guess when we talk about this, and I think the senator had a great point, I'm curious as to, are we opening Pandora's box here that everybody's gonna come in now all of a sudden and say, well, wait a minute, we wanna move to here, and we wanna move to there, and whatever. So I have that problem, and that's respect to Mr. Anderson, I also am understanding him. But I'm also curious, isn't there, if we looked at the collective bargaining agreement about, isn't there something about bumping within your region or district in there also that affects that? If there is in there. But you have to go and stay in your district first, and then you can go out to statewide and so on.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question.
Isn't there something in there with IWD bumping that you have to stay in your region first and then you go out?
Correct, Greg.
Well, then you can't change that,
Here?
folks.
Dean, could you
Yes.
have them speak up? I can't hear anything.
Greg?
Oh, I'm sorry, I will speak up. I believe there's something in the collective bargaining agreement with ASME that when you do a layoff or a reduction of force, you have to stay within your region. Well, you're just changing regions now on employees, and it's going to affect that adversely. And we just got through a recall, I think, after a settlement that put back, 48 people to work?
We're in the middle of,
But we're bringing it back, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so,
Greg is correct.
and isn't Denison opening up?
Dennison, the office of
Yeah.
Dennison?
No? Okay.
No, no.
All right, but we're still bringing 48 people back to work, and so I get curious, I mean, I see this as many years ago, and I wasn't part of this, but I see this as many years ago, this was, how do we do this? Which had to be a very complicated task. Very. And I've heard from 2 people who were on this. And the best idea they could come up with at the time was to, let's roughly design this around the 15 community college boundaries, as close as we can to stay within county lines, because I see here where Central Iowa Community College crosses into Clay and so on.
Correct.
But we still did it that, I guess I understand the transportation problem of the people, but they can still go to any place they want to go. And I'm having a real problem with even thinking about changing this when we start looking at opening this box of, really? We're going to open this box, and now we're going to hear from Jackson County, and next we're going to hear from Clayton County, and then we're going to hear from Lynn County. Is going to say, well, we want to be our own thing. And then you come down here and you can look at, you can look at any of them. Look at Fremont. I mean, I just got to wonder, really, as to all that work was for naught. And transportation is going to be a problem anywhere. I also heard from the person on the phone, with respect to his opinion, and I want to thank him for coming here today, or for getting on there and giving us information, that they're having a problem getting services to clients. That's a whole different issue that we spend a whole lot of time on, folks. And I guess that's going to be one of those where I guess they told you so, along with Senator Dosser and along with Ken Sager and some others. I think we sat here and said, and Gene Logan said, told you so. And now a year later, here it comes. So I'm curious as to why this would be considered. I'm not a voting member of this board, but I do have a right to.
Can't hear this guy at all.
Greg, they can't hear you.
Oh, well, I'm done.
Could I ask a question too?
Certainly.
I'm not sure. In Region 1, we have
a great distance to travel on the board. And we have a little problem with attendance with Dubuque coming to Elkader because it's a distance and it's a real responsibility to get there. Are we gonna, is this gonna help your attendance if they move into 3 and 4, they'll be closer to where you would have a board member attending? You might have a couple.
I would start off by saying very rarely, and it's very rarely, do we not have a quorum. And when I'm talking about quorum, the CEOs and also the RWIP board
Right.
members.
Right.
We're a relatively large region. I would add just a little sidelight here. I come from the far western part of South Dakota originally. And the 90 miles is not a big issue there, you know, as far as that's concerned. But here in Iowa, sometimes that gets to be okay. Better to be closer to what?
So your attendance from in Region 5, you still get everybody coming?
I'm talking about Region 3.
I mean, 3, 4, you're, okay.
Surprisingly, in our area, and it always kind of surprises people, if you look at that area, which county would you assume has the biggest population?
Yeah.
It's Sioux County.
Thank you.
Further south.
Just continuing that question, Mr. McBain,
Yes.
how are you doing with attendance and need on board members?
Usually with our red board, we will have a quorum. The CEO boards, we don't. So I don't know why.
And ours tends to be the opposite. When we're short, we'll be short on our whip and not the CEO, so.
Ours is too.
Yeah.
And then the last couple meetings, the CEO has not had a quorum.
And you don't do a combined meeting, or you do?
Yeah, we do.
You do the combined meeting?
Yes.
Okay, and how about you?
Ours has always been combined, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Dale Aarons again, of University.
yes, sir.
I'd like to throw in just a couple of comments here. Transportation for the supervisor to attend the monthly meetings is not an issue for us. We've been sending a member of our board to the Fort Dodge meetings right along. Up to a couple of years ago, I was attending those. I've since handed that off to somebody else. I currently go to all the Northwest Iowa planning meetings in Spencer, as well as the RISE meeting, as well as the Substance Abuse Council. I'm in Spencer a lot, and I've actually sat in on a couple of the 3-4 WIA meetings, and just to see what was going on. This is not about the supervisor's transportation. This is about transportation for the client. We have regional transit available to get our people from Buena Vista to Spencer. We don't have anything like that that currently serves from Buena Vista to Fort Dodge. It's simply about serving our people. Half of my county lives within 25 miles of Spencer. The other half of my county lives within 35 miles of Spencer. It's a natural part of our traffic region up here to have these folks going to Spencer or having someone from Spencer coming here to serve these folks. And we're only talking about moving the WIA portion. And we certainly don't think that it would make sense that some funding should come with that function. But that's all we're talking about. We already go to Spencer for everything else that has anything to do with the Council of Governments. We're in the Northwest Iowa group.
Thank you. Anyone have-
Madam Chairman, Francis Tremick here. I have a couple of questions.
Okay, Francis?
To the Buena Vista County folks, what are you hearing from the communities there, like Alta, Dual, Marathon, some of those counties? I see you have the letter of endorsement here, but what are you hearing from those those cities, counties, or cities, municipalities?
As far as availability of services,
Well, that, and are they all in agreement with your position on it?
I haven't gone to the individual councils and asked that question specifically, except that we meet with all of those city councils on a quarterly basis, and they're aware of what we're doing, and I had no objections from those groups. Again, half of my county, well, about a third of my county, lives within 25 miles of Spencer. We have a local joke up here. The northern third of my county thinks they live in Clay County now.
Okay, I understand, but none of them have gone on record and put forth a positive resolution.
We didn't ask, but they have been advised of this at the last two quarterly meetings. We hold a city-county meeting, and of course, all the mayors and city councils are invited to that.
And there was no objection for any of them. They could all see the logic of the services being available in the center.
Okay.
And that's actually the community that's the closest. It's less than 2 miles from the Clay County line. About 3,000 people live in that town. So it's just a natural for them. They take the Spencer paper instead of the Storm Lake paper. Like I say, they think they live in Clay County.
I hear you. My other question is for Teresa. Teresa, are you positive, is it your understanding that if we move one county from 5 to 3-4, that will not cause the interruption of the grandfathering of the makeup of those boards?
Yes.
Okay.
The change
Thank you.
the change, Francis, would be obviously as transition occurs with those two individual boards, you would want to have Buena Vista County represented on that RWeb board in 3-4 versus 5, but those are natural changes that take place over time as people's time periods on a board revolve off and new board members are brought on board. Because we like to try to have as many counties represented on an RWeb board as are in the region. But not every region does that for any number of reasons. But I would guess that if a change was made, that both the Region 5 board as well as Region 3-4 would change that representation on their board naturally.
We do have a representative from every county
On 3-4?
on 3-4. A representative from every county.
Yeah.
And,
That's good.
and any time we have
And
changes, there's a point made.
try to maintain that.
We try to maintain that.
Yeah, that's very good. That's good.
I just want to clarify a couple things. Knowing that it doesn't affect the grandfathering clause and the understanding about the federal dollars, I wouldn't have a real problem with Buena Vista moving into Spencer. In fact, when Steve and I were involved with this, actually we were kind of on the opposite sides of this issue in '95 when we formulated these regions, where he was really in support of using the community college districts and I was more of a labor shed point of view. And we made the presentation. I chaired the committee that put the regions together. We made a recommendation to the board, and actually Steve was a better, more effective lobbyist than I ever was. That was before I was in the legislature, because he prevailed as a minority report on how to do this. And at the time, it really kind of made sense that the community college boundaries were a better way of going, because we had all these satellite offices and you could really get served pretty close to home, in fact, at home almost. And, today is a different animal. That was in 1995. Here it is, 2012, going on 2013. Now, Greg might have a very valid point about the contract stuff, and I'm sure that we've made changes before, something possibly could be worked out, and that's a valid concern about how we do this and how we bump back. But it does make sense to me that, you know, when you have an area like Buena Vista so close to Spencer, and that's where they're going for services, the money ought to really follow the clients. And I wouldn't be opposed to the change, but I would like to see a clarification on the contract aspect that Greg brought up, because that could cause some problems. But I'm sure that something could be worked out, and you know, in that area, because I know my friends that work in the bargaining unit over there. You know, that's the kind of thing that if you're that close, you probably would want to stay closer to home anyway, in those kind of bumping rights. So, and they're always willing to work when it makes sense. So, for the individuals that have been out there representing, you know, the bargaining unit and serving clients really have the interests of the clients involved, and I'm confident that something could be worked out. But that contract is very specific. It's laid out. It's actually, you know, kind of law, so to speak, and that's a concern that we need to have. So, but I'm very much in favor of making the change at this time. And if there are other changes come up that need to be made, maybe that's what we need to do.
Yes, Steve?
I concur with Senator Dotzler as well. I mean, I've always been a strong proponent of trying to maintain the integrity of these original delineations, and the primary rationale for that back in 1995-96 was our community colleges were, and I think still today, are very much a part of the core delivery system of our workforce development delivery system. And back then, the ADAs were, again, coincidental, the same regions as our 15 community colleges. That's obviously changed over time because of a lot of mergers and changes in that system as well. I think in this particular case, you know, these counties make a very, very good case for that kind of a change. And from my point of view, I see no problem in endorsing that change. But I would caution the board that you could very well be opening up a Pandora's box here that needs to be given some thoughtful consideration.
We've been asked to make, well, we have a choice of doing nothing on the request. We can approve the request, but it goes forward to the governor only as a recommendation.
Thank you for your time for both of us.
Thank you. So I guess
Those are the two options.
Or a third, you can deny.
yes, you can deny the.
You can
The what?
recommend.
You can deny.
unknown.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair, I'd offer the motion to approve the investment in the region and move easy to reduce it.
I would second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Could you restate that, please?
Recommend.
I didn't hear it.
My motion is to approve the request to realign Buena Vista County with Region 3 and 4. Accept their request. I recommend to the governor that he approve that change.
Would you accept a friendly motion or friendly amendment to address the collective bargaining issue? And see where we are with that particular thing, and to clarify, verify maybe, the impact on the Arwood board makeups by moving one of these counties. Does that affect anything?
Can you hear that, Francis?
No, I missed a friendly amendment.
Okay, can you speak up, please, Dan?
Yes, I can, actually. Yeah, friendly amendment to check into the impact on the collective bargaining agreement and look at the Arwood makeup as part of that amendment, or part of that motion, sorry.
I don't understand the Arwood.
The board makeup, does moving that county affect the makeup of the current boards other than what would naturally occur as a result of bringing new people on, makeup for the additional county, moving them off of 5, moving at some point in time on to 3, 4.
Okay. Everyone understand that? We have a motion on the floor with a friendly amendment.
Which I accept. Thank
And a second. The amendment has been accepted. Are you ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we will send our recommendation to the governor for his consideration.
As a point of
Madam Chair,
understanding.
one question.
Yes, sir?
Would you have any idea what effective date might be if the governor gives his okay to this?
I don't personally have any idea how soon he will take this up. My attorney's sitting here saying no.
September. My suggestion, this is Teresa, my suggestion is that we would compose the recommendation with the 2 areas to check into. I think we'll be able to have some suggestions for those 2 areas. It's September 6th today, so probably before the end of the month, we would have the recommendation to the governor.
Okay.
I am happy to talk to the staff to see when the timeline might be for the governor to review this and decide and share whatever that timeline is with everybody. I'm happy to do that.
That's the best we can do. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more, on the collective bargaining, and that's a matter of mechanics to
Yes.
work out how that works as opposed to a deal breaker. Do I understand that right?
Yes, we would go back through what has happened, especially in the last 12 months, I think, maybe longer, whatever is reasonable, and check those in conjunction with our union representatives and go back and see who may have been affected with their bumping from that county, which obviously would affect the regions that they would have as their selectives on their preferences. And we would go back and work through that and come to a resolution with our partners at the union that we work with on all of these issues, and we work through it that way. Don't you see that's the way it would work, Greg?
I believe that would be one of the ways. The other way would be to look forward, because if my home base is Fort Dodge, I mean, I feel.
Correct.
You
Well,
could-
we
I
probably have to
can't-
both
on my
of that.
dispenser, I might not be able to bump into.
Yeah.
So both things, I mean,
Yeah.
it's more, absolutely, I like the word mechanics.
Yeah.
Work out, it's more, thank you for that.
Any other comments?
Just a point of order. You know, the people that are on the phone they don't know, the board members don't have a lot of voices like I do. And, you know, I know in the press meetings, maybe not here, but in other places, we had extended microphones that went out in. And maybe we could look into that in the future, so some of the less voluminous people can be heard on the phone.
Good idea. And I
Maybe
want-
that's the reason why I get to be chair. I have a loud voice.
And I want to thank the folks who phoned in for this agenda item. You were very helpful in disseminating information and opinions, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you fellows who drove up here, special thanks. You said that was a real trip for both of you. I appreciate it.